Superheroes dying isn't something people love to watch, but supervillains dying? Now that's amazing.
Sunday!
What are you doing?
Marvel has had a few supervillains that were terrifying, but their sweet little death made everything worth it. So today we're going to round up the best supervillain deaths in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because the TV Regent is a wish-granting factory, and I love it. Let's go. 10. ULTRON. Rarely will you find deaths as satisfying and poetic as this one, and with everything that's happened with What If Episode 8, ULTRON dying is satisfying indeed. ULTRON seemed like an unkillable villain. Usually all villains start as invincible until the plot armor gets to them. Anyway, ULTRON is like a virus that can control any digital device and take up the form of anything. You kill his robot body, he'll just transfer his consciousness to something else. So how do you kill something that just refuses to die? Well, a super team of Avengers and a Vision. Age of Ultron did bring in a huge number of heroes together, but it was through and through a Vision show, and it was kind of poetic that Vision landed the killer blow. So after hours of excruciating fighting, Ultron finally got disfigured, but he ran away swiftly. Vision comes to him saying something deep, and bam! Ultron tries his best to kill his successor, but the Mind Stone kills him faster. It's great that Ultron lost the battle, otherwise the what if scenario is just too scary to imagine.
You think I care? You take away my world, I take away yours.
9. Malekith. Now, here's a villain who was okay-ish through an okay-ish movie, managed to salvage some reputation right at the end. In a way, Thor Dark World set the ball rolling with the Aether being the reality stone. Malekith is your typical villain. He'll destroy the world, the galaxy or the universe and take the throne. It's a solid plan, but it doesn't work. Thor and Jane team up to stop when the fight intensifies in London, but Malekith controls the Aether and it's indestructible. Turns out that the secret to defeating Malekith is not to kill him, it's to transport him to a different realm altogether. And it's a bonus that he took his ship with him, so he still has the bragging rights of not being killed by Thor. Eight. DREYKOV.
That was a mistake.
Try again. Do it. It's a safe deal.
A villain's death that's as satisfying as ice cream after a meal. DREYKOV was, for a man, pretty powerful. He brought the Black Widow program to the world, he then hid it when needed, and then he used the Widows to destabilize the world. The final battle was curious because Natasha couldn't just kill DREYKOV because of the pheromones. I know I'm lazy, but I'm not as lazy as the Black Widow scriptwriters. So for the majority of the fight, DREYKOV had the upper hand until Natasha decided to break her nose. The hatred for DREYKOV grows stronger because he's still one step ahead of the Widows, and it took Yelena, the Widow he groomed, to do a monkey flip on his helicopter to kill the man. For a moment I thought DREYKOV would get away once again, but I guess he didn't factor in the Widows' love to kill themselves.
Oh, stop it.
Don't tell me to stop!
God damn it, you're weak.
7. Ronan the Accuser.
Paltry gods! Your salvation is at hand. Yeah!
Child, things are gonna get easier.
It was a shocking death the way Ronan the Accuser died, but it looked so good on screen. It was as if James Gunn went up to the graphics team and asked them to crank up the visuals in Photoshop. How high? All the way to 1,000. So when all hopes are lost and death is staring at you, the first thing you need to do is dance. At least that's the Star-Lord way anyway. Peter distracts Ronan with weird dance moves while Rocket and Drax prepare to blast away his hammer. And that works perfectly. Ronan loses the Power Stone, Peter starts dying and bam! All of a sudden, we have the tag team. The Guardians beat Ronan the way every Disney hero beats their villains, with the power of unity. Ronan was surprised how a mortal could hold the Power Stone with his bare hands, but little did he know that his dance-off opponent was a half Celestial.
You're mortal! How?
We're the Guardians of the Galaxy.
6. Killmonger. This is one death that left me broken and hollow inside. Killmonger's the one villain I can sympathize with, and it's hard not to. A kid from Oakland who lived his whole life deprived of the opportunities that were his, he finally decides to take back what's his and redistribute among people who could use the resources. Comrade Killmonger's motive was solid, but his means, well, not so much. After a series of edge-of-the-seat battles, T'Challa finally got the better of Killmonger, but in his last moments, Killmonger showed who he really was. All he wanted was to witness the Grand Wakanda, the story he heard growing up in his final moment. He chose a life of freedom over slavery. Just listen to this.
Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships, as they knew death was better than bondage.
5. WENWU. The newest entrant to the villain clan, I didn't expect WENWU to die considering how complex he was. WENWU's a proper villain, a rarity in the MCU. He's a complex person to begin with, has a solid motive, a compelling argument to fuel his destruction, and a crazy amount of ignorance for his children. So when Shang-Chi got a few of the rings, I wasn't sure how the heck he'd kill his 1,000-year-old father. Dude's conquered civilizations, destroyed cities, and is totally badass in a fight. But just like any solid supervillain death, it's not about why the villain dies, but what he does before his death. WENWU finally realized his mistakes and went on to fight the creature from the other realm, only to save his son and daughter. That's some epic shit right there, and an emotional goodbye to an awesome villain. Well, scratch that, a hero. 4. HELA. If you can't kill a villain, just kill the entire planet. That seems to be the pattern for villains who are too overpowered to die by heroes. When Odin died, HELA freed herself and came back to take what was rightfully hers. And in doing so, she destabilized Asgard, killed people and took one of Thor's eyes. Even when Thor went super god mode and started his immigrant song fight sequence, HELA was unfazed. If a literal god can't kill the goddess of death, then no one can. So Thor did what he could, unleash Ragnarok on Asgard and trap HELA in it. He really destroyed his planet because he didn't want to share his toys with his sister. To this day, I'm not sure if HELA actually died though. I know Surtur is no small task, but to think HELA would just accept defeat is so unlike HELA, isn't it? So I'll leave it to you. Do you think HELA actually died? Give us a comment below.
Hulk, stop, you moron! Hulk, stop! Just for once in your life, don't smash!
Big monster!
3. Ego.
Oh, we need to stop him! Kill me! You'll be just like everybody else! What's so wrong with that? No!
From literally crushing a planet on a villain to a villain that's an entire planet, we move on. Ego was super impressive, wasn't he? The closest to celestial-like powers we've seen in the MCU, and it couldn't have been any better. Ego really flushed his Good Father award down the toilet and went full-on megalomaniac on his own son. Why? Because it takes 2 to rule the universe, but Ego's calculation was a tad bit wrong, and Peter ended up placing a bomb inside his father's planet head. It does sound weird, because it is. Ego's death is memorable in 2 ways. 1, he was such a huge presence that it created a planet-sized spectacle, and 2, it led to the death of Peter's daddy Yondu. He was a surprise package of this film, and Ego's spectacular death was followed by Yondu's emotional goodbye. It was enough to make a grown man cry. 2. Loki.
You should choose your words more carefully.
Loki's alive and well, but he technically died, didn't he? And just like Killmonger, Loki showed who he truly was in the moments of his death. When the inevitable finally arrived, it was Thor and Loki who had to put up a brave fight, because let's face it, the beating that Hulk got at the hands of Thanos, well, it wasn't much of a fight at all, was it? But the brothers, they just weren't good enough. As we saw in the next film, it takes an entire army of Avengers to fight Thanos. Anyway, Loki did put up a brave fight, perhaps too brave to be alive. The thing with Loki is, He's extremely smart, isn't he? He can read the room and change sides for his gains. And the thing about Thanos is that he knows how Loki works. The Pledge of Allegiance swiftly turned into another betrayal, but Thanos was prepared. A little pressure on the neck and there goes the God of Mischief. It was so painful and sad to see Thor sitting there unable to do anything. In all the initial films, everyone wanted Loki to die, but when it finally happened, it just hit differently.
You will never be a god.
1. Thanos.
I am inevitable. I am Iron Man.
It had to be him, didn't it? The death of Thanos was monumental in every stretch of the word. After decimating everything in his way, after yeeting half of the universe out of existence, seeing Thanos finally die was huge. Scarlet Witch couldn't do it, Thor couldn't do it, heck, even Captain Marvel couldn't do anything. But it took the good old Iron Man to sacrifice himself and snap Thanos to dust. Thanos has had a lot of solid arguments, but his choices were never right. So when the mightiest enemy of the Avengers finally sat down to count the seconds, it was a milestone in cinema indeed. But he's not entirely dead though. Just like Bruce brought back half of the universe, anyone with the Infinity Gauntlet could bring Thanos back. But for everyone's sake, I hope he stays dead. When you look at it, supervillain deaths are indeed pretty eventful. Perfectly executed ones are emotional, impactful, and they lead new events to come. So which one of the MCU villain deaths has got you good? The one that you just can't shake off? Be like the good citizens of Xander and let us know in the comment section. Also, what do you think of the villain death series? Let us know if you want to see more deaths. I mean, not like that came out wrong, but you know what I mean, don't you? Don't forget to play your part in growing this awesome community. Like the video, share it with friends, and subscribe to the TV Regent.